Hey, Em. Good morning, girl. How are you doing? It is your dad, Miguel Trujillo. It is the 15th of January, 2019. 19 years after the year 2000. That's right, the 20th, the 21st century. Your 21st century dad. Here in full view. Hope you're doing well today. It's been blustery lately. The wind has just been roaring outside of my window. Um, and it's been raining. Uh, Much of yesterday it rained, and today I fully expect more of the same. Thankfully, I've got a nice rain jacket that I use. Protects me from the water that's falling out of the sky. and I'm not one to have or use an umbrella. For me, an umbrella is just a big thing that I have to take care of. And it's often a thing that breaks, you know, they break. And you got to find a place for an umbrella. Whereas an outer shell, which is what I use to protect myself from the rain, an outer shell seems to me to be a lot more practical solution. I can carry it like I'm carrying a sweater, and I can stuff it in my bag or something like that. It's something that doesn't necessarily hold a shape. It's something that I can sort of jam into small places. And so it's not something I have to find a place for. And I like it too. It's very effective. It's an all over body protection type of thing. I throw on my cover, and I'm waterproof basically from head to my waist, which is the most important part. And I don't have to worry about, I guess, keeping this stick, right, this umbrella in front of me. Or now it's true, I can't share it with anyone else. It's definitely an individual type of level of protection. Um, but I really appreciate my little coat that I wear. No umbrella. I remember you, Emily, when you had an umbrella. You loved your umbrella. I remember when we would walk you to school, to the Montessori school out at Vandenberg Village when we lived at 289A Burton Mesa Boulevard. And you were so cute. I loved how you dressed. What a fashionable kid you were. And you would have your special boots or your special jacket. You'd have your hat, and you'd have your umbrella. I mean, to die for. Girl, you were so cute. And of course, you had your backpack. These were on stormy days when we would walk from our house out to the school. Uh, Man, I really cherish those times with you. Yeah. I'm so grateful to have experienced that time with you and got to spend that time with you, walking you to school every day. Just glorious. Just glorious. Anyway, um, speaking of gratitude, I have been, I finished reading a book that I sent to you. The book was called Attitudes of Gratitude: How to Give and Receive Joy Every Day of Your Life by M.J. Ryan. And here's my idea. My idea is that we have a kind of book club. You and we talk about these books. I bring out the notes that I've made as I've highlighted the book, as I've read through it. Maybe I'll talk about these highlights a little bit. I'll let you know about what I think about the subject matter. And we can have a little book club where we share our learnings after we've read the book. Now, you have a copy of this book. I have a copy of this book. That sounds like a book club to me. And, you know, I think, it would be nice for both of us to sort of explore, these ideas, to become familiar with them, to become intimate with these ideas, and sort of understand them in a lot of different ways. I think it can be really helpful. So anyway, I've already started going through the book one by one, and so let's move on to one of the topics that was raised by the book. This is a quotation from page 74 of that book, Attitudes of Gratitude by M.J. Ryan. So M.J. Ryan goes on to say that, quote, as we cultivate a true and deep appreciation for what we do have, we realize that our sense of lack is for the most part an illusion. So I wanted to talk about this briefly. I think it's really important to become aware of how much our sense of lack is an illusion. Our lives, and I make reference to this all the time in my discussions with other people, and that is our lives are just amazing right now. If you think about the kings of old who lived in the Middle Ages, these are people who ruled entire nations, and they had access to clean water, they had access to firewood to keep them warm, they had access to some medical care. They had access to wise men who conveyed knowledge and had, had wisdom and were learned people. And, they had access to food and entertainment, but not to the extent that we do today. Today, our modern day 21st century families and people, we have access to more luxury than was even conceived of by the kings of the past, the kings who lived in the Middle Ages. Today, in fact, even just our medical technology is surpasses even the wildest dreams, I think, of the kings of old. And, I'm just going to bring you a little bit closer here. Let's get a little closer. Okay, so, yeah, I was thinking, these kings in the Middle Ages, sure, they had access to water, but that water wasn't fluoridated, right? They probably had some pretty gnarly teeth. And if they ever did have problems with their teeth, they would go to the so-called dentist. I'm sure they wouldn't even go to the so-called dentist. Who knows who they would go to? And often they'd have their painful teeth removed, I'd imagine. If that, maybe not even that. That's a poor way to deal with teeth rotting and dental decay. Today we've got dentists who can place, can fill cavities with ceramics, special materials, can give fluoride treatments to make enamel stronger. They've got special tools to remove the, sort of like the deposits of food on your teeth. I mean, we've got amazing technology today. We've got X-rays, and these are things that the kings of old never had. We've got things so good. And what I'm suggesting here is that this idea of lack as an illusion is an important one. If we just consider what we have, how much we have. I've talked about how, in my cell phone, I've got access to the world's knowledge, treasures untold of wisdom there in my smartphone. And through my cell phone, I also have access to the entire collection of the world's music. Our lives are completely miraculous. And oh boy, our lives are just miraculous. And so my point is that this idea of lack is very likely an illusion. It's just not. We've got a lot more than I think we. Here's the thing: what human beings do. Of course, I mentioned our brains sort of accommodate. They sort of acclimatize. They they sort of forget the good things in life, and we focus on the bad things in life. And even the bad things in our lives just aren't that bad. I'm serious. The bad things in our life aren't that bad. I mean, sure, there's a lot of bad things in our life, but come on. Divorces, I mean, I've been through 2 of them. They're not that bad. Okay? All right? They're not that bad. Injuries, broken bones, right? I've had some broken bones. I had one broken bone in my foot. But you know what? It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. I've had injuries. I've knocked my knee a couple times while playing volleyball. And not that bad. Not that bad. I've had my wisdom teeth taken out. Not that bad. Sorry. And I've had my losses too. And everyone has losses, and eventually I'll lose everything. I'll lose my life, and I'll lose every benefit that's existed in my life. And everyone loses it. There's this universalizability, this universal nature of loss, and basically it brings us all together as a people on earth. We all know that we're all going to die. And so really every one of these people who we're traveling in life with are our brothers and sisters. And we are all part of this group of survivors who's surviving political upheaval, economic upheaval, environmental upheaval. We're all in this boat together. And I guess what I'm suggesting is that even when things look bleak, they're not that bad. I mean, so I think this idea of lack is an illusion. Now, that's not to say that there are a lot of people who are suffering a lot from malnutrition, from economics insecurity, and maybe they're suffering from strife related to wartime and criminality. And, that is very tragic. And I'm not saying that their lack is an illusion, because it's very, very real. The thing is, it's sort of hard to tell what kind of loss is illusion and what kind of loss is not so much an illusion. But, it's all subjective, really. I think that may be the ultimate answer. I mean, there are people who experience terrible sense of loss and sadness despite living in the lap of luxury. I mean, you can be super wealthy and depressed at the same time. It happens all the time. I am reminded of movie stars who have committed suicide. There are a lot of them. These are people who have mountains of goodwill from their fans. They make huge amounts of money and have fame. And now there are stresses too. They suffer the stresses of it all, right? The schedules, the commitments, the duties. I'm sure it's a problem. And it can wear on you, I'm sure, the longer you do it. Now, there are some who thrive and some who do not thrive in that environment. And a lot of it has to do with, say, the attitude that that person brings to their life situation. So I guess what I'm talking about is this whole idea of lack. The idea of lack, it can be subjective. There are people who are extremely poor who live in abject poverty and are happy. It's possible. There are a handful of them. There are a lot of them. You have to realize too, human beings are, we evolved over the last 200,000 years in extremely severe conditions, right? Human beings, we lived in tribes in severe conditions. Just look at the Native American Indians, right, in North America. Imagine what their life was like, right? They had teepees, right, that were made from wood and the skin of buffalo, right? Their clothes were made from buffalo skin, buffalo hide, blankets made from animals that they hunted. They were subsistence living as hunter-gatherers. And, all the warmth that they had, imagine where they lived. They lived all over this United States. And let me tell you, the weather at night gets awful cold. And much of the United States is blanketed in snow in the wintertime. You just have to realize I think of also Eskimos that live, the Inuit people who live in the northern climates, higher latitudes. They lived on ice and they fished for whale and seals and for fish. This is a life of struggle. It's a life of uncertainty, right? Today, how do you compare our lives today compared to the lives of, say, the Native Americans and the Inuit people that lived, really just like 200 years ago, really lived out in the wilderness without running water, without electricity? We're definitely living as kings today, as not just the kings, but just like untold wealth and security that has just never existed before. Now, I'm not saying that all people live like we do, right? And Emily, you and I, we live in the U.S., so we live in a developed nation, and I can only speak from my experience. I've lived in a developed nation my entire life. And so I have a suspicion that this sense of lack that a lot of people feel may be somewhat subjective, maybe unjustified, compared to the way people were living just 200 years ago. Just 200 years ago. And we have indoor toilets. We have antiseptics. Anyway, what I'm trying to get at is I want you to, Emily, I think it makes sense for you to check your sense of lack. Check it to see if it is appropriate, if it is calibrated to not just your life over the last 14 years, but your life, but all people's lives over the last 200,000 years. Let's do some calibration here. Yeah, your life is not like the Kardashians. It's not as fantastic as that. And I'm not suggesting that the Kardashian life is anything fantastic. But at least your life is on par with that, I think. At least compared to human lives over the last 200,000 years. So, yeah, keep that in mind, that this idea of lack is probably an illusion. And I think knowing that, realizing that, has a tendency to, I think, moderate your attitudes and moderate your behavior. Things are not, I see no reason to be for desperation if there is no lack. If there is no lack, there is no reason for desperation. There are occasional losses, and these losses are widely recognized. But there's also no need for severity. There's no need for severity in a life without lack. There's no need for cold, how should I say? There's no need for overly harsh feelings or opinions in a world without lack. So what I'm suggesting to you is an attitude of moderation, an idea that peace is possible, peace within your mind and peace in the world is possible because, there's scarcity and, there's lack in some respects. But we're talking about relative scarcity and relative lack. I want to talk about scarcity and lack as it was 200 years ago, which is considerable. Anyway, let's move on to the next quotation. So here's on page 74, MJ Ryan also mentions another point. She says, he who knows that enough is enough will always have enough. So how much is enough is, I think, is a question that makes sense to ask. How much is enough? We talk about scarcity and we talk about lack. And the opposite, of course, is having enough, being full, being satisfied. I'll often the difference between, say, lack and satisfaction is an attitude, right? It's an idea. It's an idea in your mind about the way things ought to be, right? It's a judgment that we make. And where we fall on that pole of satisfaction and lack, between those poles of satisfaction and lack, has a lot to do with just our perspective, right? About what we think about the world, how we think about the world. I guess that's what I'm really getting at. I'd like you to think twice about these hard feelings that you might have, that might be arising or bubbling up in your mind, And what I'm suggesting is that it's probably okay to soften those ideas a little bit. Be a little more gentle with yourself. That's what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting a little bit of self-care. If you take a step back and recalibrate a little bit, you're not holding this idea as tightly, this idea of lack or problem that exists as tightly. So basically my intention, Emily, is to give you a little bit of relief from this idea that there's loss and lack and struggle in your life. I want to get you to question that, to be skeptical when you have a feeling of loss or desperation or lack. I want you to think twice. I'm not telling you, I'm just asking you to think twice about it because I love you. I want you to, thrive. And a lot, sometimes it takes a little bit of a sort of a dispassionate It's important to take a sort of a somewhat of a dispassionate view and sort of look at what the reality of the situation is so you can get calibrated. All right. What's next? Question number 75. Or it's not a question, but it's another quote from this book. It says, all you have to do is act as if you've just met this person and are falling in love. So, this whole idea of acting as if is important. And acting as if something new is also important. Human brains have the ability to adapt to our environments. And when things are really good, we just take for granted a lot of those good things that happen. And so I think it's useful to act as if the good things around you are brand new. That's right. Act as if, for example, your mother and father, that is your mother and stepdad, I'm sure that they probably get on your nerves every once in a while. Naturally, they do. And no doubt there are parts of them that you love and parts that you do not love. So what I'm asking you to do is and I have a feeling that when you were first involved with your stepdad or with your mom, there was probably a lot of, goodwill and enjoyment and uniqueness and love that flowed. And then as time goes on, you tend to be a little more judgmental about them. You notice, you begin to catalog all the areas that they failed you. Right? I guess what I'm suggesting is just to take a step, to be patient, take a step back, and at least consider for a moment the idea of acting as if these people are new to you, right? They're brand new, and that, falling in love with people and being in love with people is about sort of considering anew the things that you love about them. It's about using your imagination to create this freshness about what pleases you about them. And, human beings are just so miraculous. They're so versatile and dynamic and different and changing that what's great about that is that there are a lot of opportunities to notice what's good about other people. And this is something I need to do. I definitely need to do this. I need to just recognize all the good that exists between people all around me, between me and people all around me. Anyway, I think that's probably enough. It's about seeing the world as new again. I know you're only 14 years old, and I think that a lot of the world is still new. But I also have a sense that it gets old sometimes. I know it gets old. You take people for granted, you take your health for granted. It's so easy to do. And anyway, I'm just suggesting that it makes sense to act as if the things around you are new. And that can fuel, sort of help you see the good things in life. All right, well, let's go to the next segment, and that's the question and answer period. So I've got a ebook filled with 1,000 questions, and I'm going through each and every question, answering it for you so that you can get a sense of who I am, and you could experience what's going through my mind and what my history is, and maybe you can get a little benefit from my experience and my ideas. And all right, so here we go. Question number 187. What do you do when you want to relax? So when I want to relax, chances are I just do internet surfing. That's what I do when I want to relax. I do some internet surfing. If I want to relax, maybe I'll listen to music. Maybe I'll darken the room a little bit, get a nice pillow underneath my back and maybe a blanket, and listen to some music. Maybe I'll have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. It's possible that I might do some reading. Believe it or not, I've been playing video games a little bit here and there lately, and that's been giving me some pleasure. I've been playing some classic video games. Super Mario Brothers, Donkey Kong Jr., Zelda, Galaga, Joust, Defender, Tempest. You probably are not that familiar with any of these games, but I kind of grew up with them. These computer games, I kind of grew up with them when I was a kid. These are old arcade games that I enjoy. Let's see, what else do I do when I want to relax? Sometimes I'll take a shower. If I want to relax, did I mention I'll read a book? I will, or I'll listen to an audio book. What other things do I do when I want to relax? Often I'll go for a walk. I find that can be very consoling. Maybe I'll go for a drive, do something different, you know. If I want to relax, what else do I do when I want to relax? Well, maybe I'll have a glass of water, a nice tall glass of water. Now, for me, it may or may not be a glass. It may just be like a liter. I've got these water bottles. I'll fill up a liter of water in the bottle, and I'll just drink. I'll drink my H2O. That's what I can do when I need to relax. What else do I do when I want to relax? I also enjoy sparkling water. I've got some cans of bubbly sparkling water, flavored sparkling water in my refrigerator, and I really love that. Eating is something I do when I want to relax. How can I forget that? I know. If I want to relax, what else would I do? Maybe I'll choose like an art project. I'll get some crayons and a coloring book or something like that. Or maybe I'll take out my marbles. I've got glass marbles that I kind of like to look at and enjoy and play with sometimes. That goes back to when I was a kid. You know, when I was a kid, I used to play marbles in middle school. And, you know, I would collect marbles. My friends and I would collect different kinds. We'd have different designs like cat eyes and clearies and steelies. You know, these are marbles made out of steel, I guess. And we'd compete against each other to acquire new marbles. You know, we'd have different games that we'd play. Like one was like golf. Sometimes we'd play just a regular game of marbles, and it was fun, man. I liked it. I still like it. I still like looking at the beauty of these glass marbles. They are pieces of artwork, and you know, interestingly enough, a memory that I relate very closely with marbles is also cinnamon sticks, cinnamon toothpicks. Cinnamon toothpicks, basically these are toothpicks that have wooden toothpicks that have been dipped in cinnamon oil. And then you just sort of keep them in your mouth and enjoy the cinnamon flavor. That was a big thing when I was a kid. It was a really big thing, and people were making their own cinnamon sticks, cinnamon toothpicks, and such a funny thing to say and do. But that's what we did when we were kids, when I was like 9, 10, 11, 12. And anyway, for some reason, I had a tough time acquiring marbles. I think there were some times when I asked my parents for marbles, or maybe I just didn't ask them very well. I just had a hard time acquiring marbles to play marbles with my kids. I mean, with my friends. So now as an adult, I'm like hoarding marbles. Like, what? This is like the effects. This is sort of like, I recognize that this is basically an attitude that I acquired when I was 10 years old. That is a desire for marbles and to have them around. It's funny, isn't it? I was traumatized by my lack of having abundant marbles when I was a kid. Let's see, what else? Let's move on to the next question. Question number 188. Are you an early bird or a night owl, and why? So I am an early bird. I really like getting up early in the morning and getting my routine done. I love my routines, my habits. I'm a creature of habit myself, and I'm definitely an early bird. I don't like staying up too late. If I'm up past 9, I start definitely wanting to go to bed. If I'm up past 10, I'm like, whoa, it's time for me to go to bed. I don't like staying up at late. And a part of the reason is that when I stay up late, I'm up to no good. Like, I mean, I'm snacking, right? I'm eating food like that I don't even need to eat. I'm taking in unnecessary calories. I'm often doing things that aren't very productive at all. Maybe I'm watching a movie or surfing on the internet. I'm just, after 9 o'clock p.m., all productive action seems to stop. and it's just not useful for me to be up and about. I mean, I'm typically not doing anything but staring glassy-eyed into space. And I'm often not doing anything productive or useful or even interesting. I'm just kind of existing. And, it's important, I think, to cut it short. Get to bed so that at least my body can recover from the rigors of living. All right. So, yeah, I'm not a night owl. Now, I have the potential to be a night owl. I mean, I've had a few. Sometimes when I'm on vacation, I might spend some time late at night doing stuff like going out to restaurants or driving around or something or other. But I have trouble sustaining that kind of behavior. Yeah. All right. What's the next question? Question number 189. What is something that amazes you? Man, I think amazement is one of the key features of my personality. I am continuously amazed. And that's wonderful, really, because it's really quite a benefit to be continuously amazed by things. I think what that does is it just improves my motivation to discover, improves my motivation to learn. I'm just amazed. It also increases my enjoyment. So the question is, what am I amazed about? Well, I'm amazed, first of all, about the fact that I'm alive. When I was a kid, I think I suggested to myself and believed it that I might not live past age 16. I know. It's so unrealistic. I mean, as a kid, I remember being like 9, 10 years old, just watching the news and being concerned about all the bad things that were happening. And I thought to myself, man, I'm never going to make it past age 16. But naturally I did. I made it to age 16 and beyond. And somehow I survived this life, and I continue to survive and thrive. In fact, I'm healthier and stronger than I have ever been. Healthier and stronger than I've been in my 20s and in my 30s and through much of my 40s. So I'm really at a peak of physical health right now, and at a peak of mental health as well. And it's pretty amazing. Oh, So I'm amazed that I'm alive. What else am I amazed about? I'm amazed that other people are alive. I know. Uh, this life on this planet is just phenomenal. I mean, first of all, our planet is beautiful. The nature surrounding us, the animals and the plants, the insects, the features of our human civilization, the cars, the businesses, the electricity, the technology. You know, I'm really amazed that this project of civilization has survived as long as it has. A few thousand years, and somehow we have figured out a way of life that is somewhat acceptable. Um, it's just amazing how we've all put it together, how we're all working, cooperating with one another. Somehow we fell upon these economic systems, socialism and capitalism, that help us survive on this extremely threatening planet. And what I mean by that is that there is the possibility of injury, and um, injury. I mean, from the very moment that I walk out the door, there's the sun. The sun itself. You put me 15, 30 minutes in the sun, and I'll have a massive sunburn. My skin will start peeling off my body. Start flaking off, and there's so many ways to die. So many bacteria and viruses, right? There are people who get sick 2, 3, 4 times a year, man. Thankfully, I'm not one of them. I've managed to be healthy enough to keep my immune system in check and keep it healthy and strong. But yeah, there's slips, trips, and falls. I'm amazed that we all survive and thrive in this world. Yeah, it is amazing. It's totally amazing what's going on right now. I mean, every moment, every second is like this miracle. It is a miracle that I'm privileged to behold. The continuous beauty that I see around me, and just the technological beauty, the sociological beauty, um, the natural beauty. It's just amazing. So I don't know. I guess those are a few things that amaze me. Pretty much everything. Even my own consciousness amazes me. It's arising from my brain, the result of synapses and dendrites uh, emanating from my trillions of neurons. How is this possible? How is consciousness possible? I know. This feedback response system that is who I am. I don't know. It is pretty amazing. Life is amazing. Question number 190. Do you say goodbye quickly? Do I say goodbye quickly, slowly, or not at all? Well, I guess it depends, but I think mostly I'm of the type that says goodbye quickly. I will definitely say goodbye. I'm not one that says goodbye not at all. And there have been a few times when I've said goodbye slowly. But for the most part, I think I say goodbye quickly. Sometimes, saying goodbye is sometimes saying goodbye can just prolong the difficulty. Yeah. Anyway, what's next? Question number 191. What spells adventure for you? So what spells adventure for me? Well, when I go on day trips around in my local area here in Southern California, to me, that's adventure. quite often these trips are not not well planned, and so that the adventure arises from the lack of planning. So I get adventure from the get-go. Now, it would be nice if I would plan just a little bit more of my little vacations, I guess. I really appreciate the ease, and I also appreciated the unscripted nature of my adventures. I'm okay with it. I can be quite satisfied when my day trips are kind of a flop. I have the amazing ability to turn adventures from flops to fantasies. Now, from flops to, relatively successful trips. A lot of it is, you know, really travel and adventure is all about learning, right? And um, and you can learn about your travel up front, or you can learn during the trip. So, there are plenty of opportunities to learn and to mess up and write yourself after you've learned the lesson. So, I'm just keenly aware of how anything can be an adventure. I've got this mind here, and this mind is very versatile, right? It can yeah, there's I can learn lessons on many levels, right? There are lessons that I can learn from the level of, say, everyday experience, levels that I can learn, uh, levels where I can learn about the rules and guidelines that I use to manage my life. And then there's higher levels where I can learn about how to make rules that are effective in managing my life. And there are also lots of creative. I can use creativity and imagination uh, in my travels, and I'm never bored. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. There are people, I'm sure, who travel because they got nothing better to do. But I always have something better to do. I've always got something up my sleeve, stuff I'm doing, and um, I'm never at a loss. And really, because everything is so new, it's an adventure. And even daily life, even my routines are somewhat adventurous. I'm always making tiny improvements in my behavior throughout my day. And, that is kind of an adventure. Those improvements are like little places where I take the initiative, right? Where I do things for the first time, right? For example, yesterday I did some weightlifting, and I had probably 3 or 4 personal bests. I hit some PRs uh, during my weightlifting routine. And each one of those was exciting. Like, I did a set of incline bench presses, and I thought to myself, I could probably do more weight. And I threw 10 extra pounds on, and I could do them. I could do them. Just that it was that moment of thinking that I could probably lift more weight, and then the just sort of going out on a limb, right? Taking a risk. Who knows? Who knew if who knows if I would be able to lift 10 pounds more in my incline bench press than I did last week? I didn't know. I had no idea. I was gearing up for failure, that's for sure. Like, I might not have been able to do it, but I was. In fact, I did 2 sets of exercises with 10 pounds more on the bar than I did last week. And that subtle change, that subtle piece of newness was just I don't know. It was exciting. It was an adventure. I had an adventure at the gym, an adventure doing exercises that I do every week. It's kind of interesting to note that I can still be adventurous in a deeply routinized type behavior or activity. Um, so adventure is everywhere. Adventure is everywhere you take any kind of risk or do something a little bit different. And because our environments change in the world and our contexts always change, even if our environment is static, but sometimes the context changes just slightly. That's an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to display courage and bravery in the face of risk. And anyway, it is all adventurous. Every moment is an adventure. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do in the next 20 minutes. I'm still figuring that out. I'm figuring out what I'm going to do over the next 20 minutes. But you know what? That's part of the adventure. I was introduced to an idea yesterday that intrigued me a lot, and it has to do with fear. It was the suggestion that, people hundreds of years ago, even 1,000 years ago, confronted fear on a daily basis. They confronted fear through loss of their family members in death and sickness. They confronted fear through the fact that they might have been injured or killed by wild animals, um, or by foes from neighboring tribes who were their opponents. There was a lot of fear. Um, there's always the fear of falling and the fear of injury. People experience fear on a daily basis 100 years ago. And today, people really don't experience fear that often. And I think it's made us weak. Sometimes I think to some extent we've become worse at handling and managing fear, partly because we're just not exposed to fearful experiences all the time. And I was thinking that that may be part of the reason that I like to go to amusement parks and ride roller coasters. The idea is that these fear experiences are a necessity. They're needed to help me sort of use my fear in places that make sense. I need to calibrate my fear response. And in order to calibrate it, I need to be exposed to fear on a daily or weekly basis. So I know where my boundaries are. I know where the fear resides. I think it's important for me to sort of know that, to be exposed to fear and to manage fear on a regular basis. Otherwise, I think fear can get out of control. Humans have a tendency to engage in distorted thinking. And a lot of that distorted thinking revolves around thoughts and attitudes around fear of loss, fear of injury. And human beings, our lives are just so domestic. So safe. We spend our lives in such a safe environment that we just don't know how to manage fear. So anyway, I think people need there needs to be like a recommended daily allowance of fear. I think people need to be frightened here and there so that we can live life with a little bit more maturity, a little bit more understanding. Challenge and excitement is necessary for the human organism. It's necessary for our minds and our brains. As a kid, as a 14-year-old kid, I am guessing that you want to exercise your fear muscles. You want to get out there and start messing around and kicking up some dust, right? I have a feeling that is in you. You want to get out there and start having some excitement, having some exciting experiences. And exciting experiences is all about eliciting that fear response. Learning and discovering and going places that you've never been before. and loving it, right? Loving it, loving these experiences where you are walking on your edge, where you are sort of finding the edges of your lived experience and learning life lessons as a result of being on the edges of your experience. I'm thinking that's what I'm all about. That's what I need. I need more challenging experiences. And I'm delivering those challenging experiences to myself through my very adventuresome trips to Los Angeles, and who knows? I was going to Santa Barbara before, but now I'm finding these adventure experiences further afield. Who knows? Maybe we need to go zip lining. I think there are um, zip line projects up in San Luis Obispo that might be fun to visit. I think we just need to get out there and get some experience in the world. And that's really the only way that we can develop confidence, right? If you have a desire to develop confidence, say social confidence or physical confidence, it's important for you to expose yourself to social and physical fears that you have, you know? And I have that same desire too. I have a desire for adventure, and I also need to expose myself to my social and uh, physical fears. Anyway, I'm going to start wrapping things up here. Um, uh, as I wrap things up, let me mention that I love you. I am here to support you. Um, I am engaged in finding new ways, better ways to reach out to you and to more effectively welcome you and invite you into my life. I am focused on, you know, act, uh, sort of acting in ways that are more loving and more supportive. I'm using my imagination and my creativity to sort of, you know, work our sort of engage with you and connect with you in ways that produce enjoyment and satisfaction for both of us. And, I could definitely use your input, your ideas about creative ways to do that. And so I'm open. I'm I'm open to things working and not working. I'm also opening to hearing your feedback. I definitely want to hear about what's going on in your mind and what's going on in your life so that I can calibrate my activities so that I can do what's best for both of us and our long-term self-interest. I'm interested in both of us achieving our long-term goals of living and thriving and growing and developing meaningful lives filled with happiness and gratitude. And I'm always looking for new insights about how to do that, and definitely interested in your feedback. I am, you know, I am expending myself in the ways that I know how. And, I know that it's not perfect. Things really are perfect. Being human is quite often about accommodating the present situation, accepting it, and moving forward despite uncertainty and discomfort. And I think we're all just kind of finding our way, right? And so, thank you for your patience as I find my way around myself and us as a father-daughter partnership. And I just want to assure you that I'm going to continue doing the best I can, and that I have high hopes for the future. I really am hopeful, optimistic about how we can sort of develop our connection,
our friendship, and you know, make it mutually beneficial for both of us. Anyway, I'll talk to you later, girl. I hope you have a wonderful day, and cheers.